Anything you say can and will be held against you.
All right. I have about 45 minutes that I can probably give to this, but
Okay.
and then I'll watch the rest of it afterwards if I could.
So you want to get into astrophotography, right?
Yes, I would love to very much.
Okay.
Interesting, my uncle in New York, not that it's even related, was doing the opposite. He was a well-known photomicroscopist, and I have wonderful pictures of what he took for Scientific American, this and that. So I'm doing the reverse of what he did. But in any event, yes, I'm very interested in it.
Okay. But you don't have a camera of yourself, even though currently, even though you've done
my son has
photography.
a very good camera, and I could show it to you, but I do have some good equipment. But,
Okay.
and I will show it to you, because if that stuff is applicable with what we're looking at getting, that'd be fantastic.
Well, if you have a DSLR, a single lens reflex camera, Canon or Nikon or any brand, that's an excellent camera to start with.
Okay, actually, I do.
Okay.
Good. And I'll get the specs on it.
Then the major, you just need some kind of a lens to look into space with.
Equatorial Mount, of course, and everything else.
And the mount is the most important thing. It's got to be steady and not wobble, and it's got to have motors to track at the right speed so you can take longer exposures with it. You don't need, if you want to just start out, see what you are interested in, you don't need to get a go-to system where it's computer operated and it goes where you ask it to go.
I kind of like that feature though.
It's a nice feature, but it'll cost you.
Really?
We're trying to keep it below $3,000 for you.
That's idea in perfect world. Someone had recommended used equipment. I'm all for that, by the way. Whoever that was. Is that you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would recommend that too. There's excellent used equipment around available from shops. And a lot of people get out of the hobby or pass it by, or their kids grow up and they donate their scopes to the club here.
Oh, wow.
And so we have that, and we can work out some kind of a lease to buy or something, or just a straight sale, whatever you like. It'll be well below market price.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Tom has the best knowledge of what we have available in that area. But we were talking in email behind your back that something around an 8-inch Celestron catadioptric telescope would probably be a good starting place. And then you need a 2-inch extension eyepiece tube that just fits in the eyepiece. It hooks onto your camera and the camera fits in. And then the rest of it is the mount.
Sounds reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the mount is one of the most important parts. And the reason why is that as you continue to develop in the field, you may want to go get other scopes, So having a good mount to start with is paramount, although you could start out small scale and, sell it and work your way up that way too as well.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I'm more inclined to start sort of with a middle of the road kind of thing and build up from there if I could. When you buy a mount that's not computerized, is that a separate feature you can buy later to append to it, or does it have to come as one unit when you buy it, the mount?
In some cases you can do that. In some cases it's difficult. So it depends.
There should be a bunch of classifieds that show people trying to sell their middle of the road mounts because they want to move up to a more advanced mount. And so that could be a good deal. Mm-hmm. I think it was at cloudynights.com is has great classifieds.
Yes. Astromart
is fine, but Astromart you have to pay to read their ads. Cloudy Nights is free.
Okay, got it. Well, I would not buy anything without running it by you gentlemen.
Okay.
Of course, it may be equipment that you are selling to me, which then I wouldn't worry at all.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you could tell me what maybe not at this moment, what you have, I would love to research it on my own once you tell me what you have and you're willing to sell.
Okay.
I think I mentioned and copied you on this email where we do have 8-inch, a good quality 8-inch Meade, older scope, but it's very clean. And it came with a wedge mount system where it's just a clock motor that kind of moves the telescope around. It's not a go-to system. Although it's amazing what you can do with a wedge mount if you know the right ascension and declination, and if you get your north set up really nicely, you can do pretty well at times. But the scope, it's the wedge mount's not operating properly, but the scope itself is very clean. It was owned by a previous astronomer in town, and so just getting a mount for that, you have to buy a what's that called, the dovetail, that bar that you put on the side of the this optical telescope assembly, OTA, and there are screws that you find on, and I'm not sure if this one has one or not, might even have one on it, that you then you slide it into the top of a go-to mount that you could find. And we don't have any go-to mounts that we available at this point, but we do have this 8-inch scope, which I think we're talking about $400. Probably even go less on that. Is a possible starting point for a scope at least. But so the DSLR camera, and I used a good used, but maybe mount that would handle what maybe not a 25 pounder, maybe something to handle a 40 pounds, just to be probably be a more reliable mount at that point, to have a little more weight, probably more expensive mount, but it can handle more weight and it's probably steadier. Although I bought a used mount that's supposed to handle 50 some pounds, a Celestron CGX, and I've had trouble with it tracking. So, and there's been talk on Toddy Nights how the initial versions of these coming out were kind of made slightly on the cheap side, so they're not may not be holding up like they should be. There's a thing you can do on mounts called hyper tuning, where you send it off to somebody and they know how to spiff it up a mount, and so it's really well done mounts. So that'd be another possibility. Find a good used, and if you get to the point where you want to spiff it up, they can do things like that. They can put, I don't know, better bearings, or I'm not sure what they do. I can't remember the.
I can talk to that. Basically, it's reworking. Think about blueprinting your telescope mount, doing things like polishing certain surfaces and aligning the worm drive more accurately with respect to the worm gear. I mean, the wheel itself, and better bearings. I did that on my CGE, and I got it to the point where I actually was able to use my C8 successfully to do long exposures with my C8. And then my Misu came about a week later, so go figure. But it's not for the faint of heart, because you're basically taking the whole mechanism apart. All the screws, the motors, a lot of stuff. You're taking electronic parts out. You wind up taking out the controller board, and then taking out the motors, and then having to reinstall everything. But he supplies a video to do that, and he does it for a number of different mounts, including the CGE, the Losmandy, and the other ones.
So Mike, you hyper tuned it yourself after you saw the video, and you did it yourself. Yeah. Oh, I thought you always had to ship it off to those guys.
No, there's a video where they do it. They even supply a special tool for taking some of the special nuts out. But it's like I said, if you're mechanically inclined, and if you have a lot of patience, and you're very careful, and you don't mind taking your time. In other words, your mount will be, my mount was apart for like about a month on the desk in the tuna can. So
can you let me share a screen?
You want?
Tom?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Do I just press share a screen?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Oh, wow.
can you see that?
It kind of went there and it went away.
It's there.
I see it.
So is it now?
Okay, there we go.
Okay. Yeah, this shows it's clipped from a Losmandy ad, which is a company that makes parts, mostly mounts and attachment stuff. And these show a progression of mounts that they make, basically two. The G8 down on the left, G11, I had one of those. It's an excellent mount. And another G11. And then there's a retrofit that adds on to it a go-to capability, because these don't have a go-to capabilities, but they do have motors that track. And this is brand new and retail. If you can get one that is being sold secondhand in good condition, they run about half of this, and they're excellent mounts.
Yes, the G11G is probably what you have. The GM811G is basically a GM8, the declination axis with the G11 RA axis.
You think Cloudy Nights would have these?
Whenever anyone wants to sell a used one, then they put it up on Cloudy Nights. So Cloudy Nights themselves doesn't stock or store anything. They're not a.
No, I'm saying would they have some of these on?
The good thing about Losmandy mounts is that they're very simple, they're made very well, and they're almost totally user maintenance friendly. You can take those apart completely and do all the maintenance on yourself and put it back together very easily.
I had one for over a decade and I did no maintenance on it. Just
wow. I had one for about, I still have mine, but for about 8 years I didn't do anything with it, and the grease kind of gunked up. So
if you put Losmandy mount into Google, you'll get a page with these things on it. And you go to their site and you can explore all their parts and knobs and dovetail plates and this and that, and eventually sort out what you might need or what you might want.
And eBay, again, is another possibility to look at eBay and try to figure out if it'd be a good deal or not for different mounts. So besides Cloudy Nights. You know, Jerry, on these Losmandis without the go-to retrofit kit, how would you align to different stars? How do you get things aligned if you don't have a go-to alignment?
Well,
or go ahead.
It's probably not going to help Mike, but since I've been moving telescopes and pointing them at the sky since 1960, I pretty much know the sky. And I know where to look for different things, real easy things. So I do a lot of star hopping. I'll go to a bright star that's easy to find in the finder scope, and then I know to go down so many degrees and left so many degrees, and then you find the object you're looking for.
The Losmandis do have setting circles.
They do, but I never used them. So
you know, I'm using an Orion Atlas AZEQ. And I know you can pick up an EQ like the Equatorial, the EQ, what is it, EQG? You can pick one of those things up for $1,700, brand new, and it's got go-to capability.
Okay, well, Orion's Atlas stuff, those are excellent also. I just happened to pick Losmandy.
Yeah, that's what I just was saying. I'm trying to kind of keep it into your price range, and I've been using an AZEQ, which is basically the same thing as the EQ. Except that it has azimuth capability as well, and that mount has about just the Equatorial version has a 40-pound payload capability as well. There's quite a bit of slop on RA, but that's typical, I think, with a lot of these mounts that are worm gear driven, that rather than, let's say, direct drive or belt drive. And you can work with that by just slightly on balancing RA one side or the other to keep it from rocking in the wind or something like that. But the declination is never been a problem. Never rocks like that. It's got a lot of backlash in the gears, but that's it. I've done some pretty good work with it. So
a lot of times the go-to you can set it to go zero in from one direction only. And that allows you to have better pointing
Michael,
accuracy.
do you understand what they're talking about, right ascension and such?
I do. I have a question. What is the minimum weight capacity you think that these mounts should have? I'm hearing 40, I'm hearing 50. What would be your, preferred weight class on these? Anybody?
I think that in that 40 to 50 pound range is nice. I think my mount goes up to 45, and the other one that's just equatorial only is a 40 pounder. I would try to get as much weight as you can, because you're going to be not just the OTA, the optical tube assembly, you've got your camera and you've got your guide scope. So those are additional weight requirements that you're going to have on there. So what I would do is easily add probably maybe 10 pounds to whatever your OTA is going to be.
What, do you know what an 8-inch Meade or an 8-inch Celestron weighs, Tom?
They're like
Dick?
20, they're like 20 pounds, I think.
20?
Yeah.
So you'd like something like Dick says of 30 pounds or maybe even 40.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
Let's share this Orion Atlas for a second, and this one says 44 pounds payload, but it's $2,100. Sometimes they go on sale too, so you catch them at the right time. What else is interesting?
if you want to fork over the money, that shows with the type of scope we're talking about. I think that's a Meade that's on there, isn't it?
I can't tell.
It's a faded, yeah. But try see if you can find an image of the Ioptron that Chuck recommended,
Yeah.
because those are about $700 or $800.
Well, the Celestron AVX is an $800 one, but Ioptron, I didn't realize they had one that cheap.
Well, it may not be rigid enough, but they do.
A 8-inch Edge HD weighs about 14 pounds. So just for example.
Okay.
Wow, that's really light.
Yeah. So you're probably in pretty dang good shape, I would think.
What the heck happened here? Can't go there. Why can't I go there? No, there it goes. Just took some time. Camera mounts, blah, blah, blah. Go to telescope system plus OTA. I don't know. Let's see what this does. Wow. Oh, I get these oh, these are weird ones here. This is kind of funky.
All of them are unavailable anyway. But the Urban 150, that's about a 6-inch telescope. It's a refractor. That's probably not one you want to start with. You want to start with the something that's better color corrected.
Right. Gem 28, that'd probably be 28 pounds. Generally, the number sometimes indicates the weight rating on things. What, they keep getting more and more expensive here.
Boy, everything looks like it's like back order,
Yeah, coming soon.
out there in the stratosphere.
That's weird. Yeah.
I think it's still COVID, man. I'm telling you, it backed up the supply chain like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, China apparently has an entire their main shipping harbor backed up for months right now.
It's just not that, it's bicycle parts and other things too.
Weird. That's weird. Huh. Yeah.
Can you go to Cloudy Nights?
Okay.
Classifieds?
Let's see what they say. How do you spell Friday nights? Right like that. And I'll sign in just in case it makes a difference. And all right, so I'm going to come back, share the screen. Cloudy Nights, share. And let's see for classified right here, classified home.
Yeah.
And let's see what they got going on here. I'm going to Make it a little bigger.
I think they're categorized.
That's right. Yeah, let's see, mounts, tripods.
Yeah.
And what do they got here? Vixen, SXP, mount head. Losmandy GM8G
Tripod too.
on a scope roller wheels.
Yeah.
CGEM DX.
Oh, they're asking almost full retail price, brand new for that.
Yeah.
Well, it comes with a scope roller wheel, so.
Oh, yeah, right.
Got to throw a gimmick in, you know.
Yeah, maybe they're run flat or something. Who knows?
Oh,
Yeah.
right there, CGEM, Hypertunes. So, you know, the guy went and
It's got the Wi-Fi module, $100 Wi-Fi module. It's got a case too.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot.
Wonder what the payload for that is. What do you think that thing can handle?
It's probably 40 pounds range, I
Uh-huh.
bet.
That's a pretty good deal.
that's an improved model over the CGEM that I have.
This one's been hypertuned.
And Hypertune, so they improve the
Been fine tuned.
tracking.
Let's see, what do they sell those for? Seems a little slow. Let's see. Oh, $2,000 retail.
So it's not that much of a deal.
Yeah. 17, but it's got the Wi-Fi module and a case, so that's really some
Yeah.
extra. And it's in Florida.
That's
so
that's $100, maybe a little bit, maybe more.
and this thing's in Florida, so it'll be a little bit farther to go. Here's a G11 sold.
And then you got shipping too, probably.
So it got
Yeah.
sold within one day there
Wow.
in Florida. A lot of stuff going on. There's a 11 with tripod, mobile base, $1,000 offer pending. Utah. How about a 20-inch telescope mount? $4,000. In Germany, it's in Germany.
Oh, that ought to
Wait for
go.
shipping
It probably ought to
and,
cost you another $4,000 to get it over here.
Plus tariffs.
So things go quickly here. This looks
Look
like,
at page 2, yeah.
okay. But things are selling quick if they're any good. Huh? Ioptron sold. 5 here.
Well,
Oh, here's a large, it's sold.
the scarcity of
11.
astronomy product might not be as bad from now on because people have to go back to work.
There's a G11 mount, but it looks like it has no tripod, it has no counterweight shaft, and it has no
It's just a
counterweight.
head. Yeah.
That's not a good deal for you unless you're a real like to fix things up.
Well, let's see, it says, oh, push to mount. If I open that up, a new tab. Here, it's, oh yeah.
Yeah, just the head.
Yeah, the tripod costs a lot of money. And
Use less
so
than half
does-
a dozen times. No fading.
Because you had to get down so close to the ground.
Yeah.
And the counterweights are always good to get the counterweights. Those are extra.
Yeah, they're about $80 a piece.
There's
Oh,
the
I
my.
don't
turbo.
see the oh, hold a second, go to the next picture.
Oh, and another picture there. Let's see.
Yeah.
Like where? Which one?
Right
Yeah,
there.
there's a series. Just hit the, there you go.
Next one over. He's got digital setting circles.
Oh. So you just these are not go-to controls. These are just up and down, or
No,
is
that's
that,
a push me to.
There, yeah. It's you can drive it forward, backward, north, south, east, or west.
what's this panel for?
That's the setting circle, I think.
Yeah. That's
DSC,
about
yeah, digital
$1,000.
setting circles.
Huh.
Yeah, you set up, you tell it where it is, and then you tell it, and then you enter the right ascension and declination of where you want to be, and then it'll display the difference. And then you push the telescope until both readings, right ascension and declination, go to 0.
Oh,
Usually
Then you're
you
on.
use 2
you're on
stars
target.
and that compensates for polar alignment, misalignment.
Yeah.
Huh.
Go to the next picture on there, by the side there, to see if they actually supply the other things like the counterweight bar.
No, it says the counterweight bar is missing.
Ah,
See right there, right there.
so yeah, so
That's a
But it
hassle.
does have a counterweight.
it needs the bar. The bar's probably harder to get than the counterweight.
You can just
because-
make your own.
Yeah.
So Michael, are you looking to do any mechanical work at all, or just want to get it going?
Well, probably the latter,
Yeah.
because I don't have that much time, but I want to learn this thing very well. I built some radio control planes, so I know how to do them from scratch. So I have some mechanical aptitude, not tremendous amount, but you know, I follow instructions, and my son's pretty good at it as well.
Okay.
So I'm not averse
Anyway,
to.
you got to just look around on the sites like those that we showed you. and look
Yeah,
at
I
the
would
field.
one of you guys' intelligence to help me really hone in on what's good and what's
Yeah.
not. To me, these are wonderful things, but I'm still coming in with complete ignorance, absolute ignorance, as opposed to partial.
You know, people have done well. I mean, some people use the advanced VX with a cheap mount, and they do some great astrophotography. They do 5-minute sets, and somehow they can do that even with a lighter mount. And an 8-inch scope is fine for, like, I have one of these advanced VXs, and an 8-inch, a Celestron 8-inch C8. And it's, you know, a lot of people do well with starting that way and just getting the hang of things, and good camera to go with it. So you can consider starting that way and then selling it off and advancing if you think you need to go farther. I noticed there's some reference. Chuck said you had that was it some guy in Europe that did astrophotography. Let's see.
Is that Grigory Citrin from Ukraine? Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw those. That was really something else. And
Yeah,
did
he
you-
does nice work.
What was the equipment that I know you guys sent me a sort of a synopsis of it?
Yeah.
So
But,
it's this thing here,
That
And
would,
this- and this is back in 2011. This is
I know.
Well, he's got a SLR camera back here. He's got a straight through finder and big eyepiece on the back. That's where you'd put your camera.
Right.
I wouldn't put the camera through the small scope. So you wouldn't have this scope here. You just have the big white one and then your camera on the back of it. The
Right.
mount looks like it's a homemade mount. I don't recognize the brand if it's a commercial one. So he must like to tinker.
No,
But-
I read about him. Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah. So getting a Losmandy, something like that, or an Orion, and then getting say an 8-inch. I can't quite tell what that scope is, but based on the camera size, it looks like it's about an 8-inch.
yeah.
Can you read that writing on it? I'm just curious. I was trying.
I'm trying, but I
Yeah.
can't,
How about
I
if you
can't
blow
figure
it
it
up?
out.
You blow it up and turn your head. Let's see. It's probably something Russian or Ukrainian. Who knows?
Yeah.
He's from Kiev, I think, in Ukraine. I recall.
Yeah.
My question is, you think that's an 8-inch? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. It's a good thing. It's light enough weight that you can carry it around, and it's big enough that it catches enough light that you can do good work with it. You know, you can get faint stars. I've imaged with 4-inch stuff before. And that works fine too. The brightness, the stuff you saw him take pictures of, and this is the same way cameras work,
Yeah.
is that the f-stop tells you how bright the object you're looking at is going to be.
Right.
So if you had like the Palomar telescope, which is a 200-inch diameter, it's f3.3. And if you took an 8-inch f3.3 and you looked at a similar object, you would get exactly the same density on your negative that you would get with the Palomar telescope after the same amount of time. The Palomar telescope would be much higher resolution and much bigger image, but you get the same density of image. But that doesn't hold for stars, which are not extended objects. For stars, just the diameter counts. So the bigger diameter, the more stars you see. An 8-inch will get you with visually, it'll get you to about just short of magnitude 14, which is quite faint. And just a few minutes or seconds, even with a camera, you'll get well beyond that. So it's an excellent imager to start with.
What about refractors and for wide field imaging versus a reflector? A lot of people seem to like taking wide field nebulas like the North American Nebula.
Yeah, and Dick has been using just a 24 millimeter camera lens to take pictures with. So that's possible too. This telescope that you see, I'll be quiet in just a moment, comes standard as an f10.6, which is really quite long. It's good for planets and not really good for nebula. But there's a condenser lens you can put on the back that drops it down to f6.3, and then you can get good pictures of the nebula.
What about if you wanted to take a shot of Andromeda, which is like 6 degrees wide?
You wouldn't fit it in there. You'd have to take a whole bunch of shots and then stitch them together as a mosaic. With my 4-inch, I don't have anymore, but with my 4-inch NP101, I could just barely get the Orion Nebula in one DSLR frame.
I used a 10-inch on M31 Andromeda, and I did a mosaic in 2 panels. So it fit in there, but you couldn't fit the companion the one companion galaxy wouldn't fit in there. Just the one that's closer to M31.
Yeah. Now this picture behind me is a picture I took of M33, the nebula, the galaxy in Triangulum. And I took that with a 10-inch f5 reflector that I built and a DSLR camera. And that's just one shot. It's not a mosaic.
So that's not a stack?
Oh, it's a stack. It's
a stack. Okay, just a single image. Yeah.
It's, as I recall, it was 12 6-minute individual images.
So Michael, do you know what stacking is?
Now, I wanted to ask you, I was reading about the mosaic. How does that work where you're trying to, I guess, configure several pictures together to do it? I mean, functionally, how do you do it?
Should I show them mine?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, I'm on. All righty. Let me see what I can do here.
Sure.
I got to get to that shared screen thing. Here we go.
There's different
This has been reworked. I finally got around it. This particular guy right here was shot with a TeleView NP127 IS. The focal ratio is f5.2, shot with a Canon 6D MK2 second generation sensor, and at ISO 800 was the recording speed. There's 4 panels in the mosaic, and it starts with, this is 1 panel, 2, 3, and 4. This area here is what is known more famously as the Rho Ophiuchi area. And Rho Ophiuchi is this star right here that's embedded in this blue nebula right here. This is Antares over here, which is the alpha star in the constellation of Scorpius. So this, what has to be done here to make an image like this is, first of all, you got to plan it out, and you're shooting 4 of these panels, okay? So let's say this is north, this direction on the left is north. So you got to move over far enough to get, in this particular case, I went for about 30% overlap on the panels. So between this image and that image is 30% overlap. And then these images, of course, also follow suit. This is a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to end up being. I've done the 2-panel and it just fell right out when I did it, but this thing was a lot more complicated. And what made it more so, I guess, was just the fact that, well, one thing I couldn't do is I couldn't get all the panels to be the same in terms of the background. And what I found out was the best way to go was to take the darkest panel, which is this one down here, and use that as a reference panel to establish the brightness of the rest of these panels right here. But you also get certain artifacting, and I'll show you some of the artifacting. This came out pretty good. I'll zoom in so we can, you know, see some eye candy on the thing.
Wow.
Right here.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You never actually see where the mosaic lines fit together. You don't see that because
No, you don't. It's all blended and stuff
how do
like
you do
that.
You do that seamless. It looks seamless.
Right, exactly. So you can't really tell.
How's that done?
Mhm.
What software is used?
Oh, PixInsight is what I use. Now, PixInsight is it's a pay-for program. I'm not sure what the sheet price is right now, but I think I paid around $250 for it. And you know, it is one of these things that they give you updates and so forth. I think I might be a couple of versions behind. But basically, what the software is it's a set of graphic interface, let's say, controls that allow you to process an image. Also, pre-processing, that would be the stacking part. The stacking part is where what you're actually doing. I think stacking is a poor word, by the way. I think it should be sampling, because that's what you're doing, is you're sampling images over a series of images. Now, in this case, each one of these panels is probably around 36 images. That's what I try to shoot for. And the sampling is done with median sampling. It's not average. Some people use average. You can do different types of techniques. But what you're doing basically is you're aligning all these images. You have a reference image and you're aligning all the rest of the images to that reference image. And then you're sampling everything using just regular statistical techniques such as median sampling. And you're trying to get the best fit for the data. And that's what allows you to get resolution. Now, it turns out with median stacking, the signal to noise ratio, and I'll get into what that actually translates in terms of your eye, but it goes it goes up with the square root of the sample. So if I do 36 samples, then I get a 6 times improvement in signal to noise ratio. How does that translate to the eye? That just translates as better. You're better able to discern lines and get detail out of the image as a result of that increased signal to noise ratio. So you're pulling this data out from what is a very dark signal. And in the process of doing all this stuff, this stacking process, we call that pre-processing. And then you begin, the second part of the process is the actual processing part. We were taking that image, which is what is known as linear. It's in a linear state, okay? It hasn't been what is known as stretched. So it's actually a very dark image. And so you have to stretch it so that it starts to look like something like this, where you can actually see some very faint detail. Now, there's a lot of technique to get to, let's say, something like this, but you know, I believe that the hardest part isn't this part here. The hardest part is the imaging part. Always has been for me, always will be, as far as I'm concerned. That's where the real challenge is. I think anybody with enough time can do this kind of stuff. But when you're out in the field and you're trying to do this stuff and get the data, that's a whole different story, you know, because the sky's good then and it may not be good tomorrow night. So the hard part with this is just trying to get all the nights there. The other thing that I did that I didn't like about this is I had this stuff in the camera the whole time, and I didn't progressively analyze the data as I went along. So as a result, I ended up having to throw some data out. I think that you need to be building this thing as you go along. The way this thing is made is it takes, let's say you start with panel 1 here, and then you say that's your reference panel, and then you take the second panel over here, let's say, and it overlays that on top of the first panel. such a way that the stars line up. And then you do that same thing, and then you take that with the two together, and then you do the third. And then you take all three of those together and you do the fourth. So you end up, let me show you if I can get over here. And show you in the environment here. Let's see if I can get over here. Let's see here, start sharing. Here we go. Okay, so now I kind of forgot what I was going to show you. Well, at least I can show you the setup anyway. But right here is what I'm using, an Atlas Pro. This is an AZEQ mount. So this is the one that would go probably, you'd be able to run it in either equatorial mode or alt azimuth mode. This is a polar camera right here. I got a couple counter rates. This is the NP127IS on there, and there's the guide scope. This is scope right here is a scope that allows it to track the stars. And this is about a 240 millimeter guide scope, 60 millimeter objective size. I can't remember what I use. I think it's an Orion Starshoot is what I use for a camera here. And this is 6D right here. I use a Pluto shutter. It's a Bluetooth shutter, so it's wireless right here. That's what I've got this guy right here. So the intervalometer stays like, I use a iPad intervalometer on that right there to control the shutter. And it's got that's the go-to controller right there. And I've got like a little, this guy over here is like a little shelter that I can put my laptop in, because you're going to need a laptop to run the autoguider with a program. There's a freeware program called PDT, which allows you to guide the stars. And essentially what you're doing is it's keeping a guide star in crosshairs the whole time while the scope is precessing through the sky. So it continues to track whatever you're trying to take a photograph of. And you have to have something like that when you're taking longer exposure times and things like that. You're just going to need to have that. So now when I was doing this, I wanted to show you one of the things I wanted to show you. Here's a previous attempt. I've been working on this thing all week, man. I'm telling you what, it just about drove me nuts trying to get this thing going. But here's a previous attempt. We'll show you kind of where we're going. See how on the background here, it's different than it is up here. See? So you can kind of tell that these are different plates that are going together. All right. There's dust mote. Dust mote is right up here. See the dust mote? Right there. So I had to get rid of the dust mote, and that was a lot of fun. There's another thing. You get a phenomenon when you start to put these plates together. You start to get to a phenomenon called, if I can get on the thing, with the problem is that this, yeah, here it is right there. You see how these stars kind of bridge over, and then there's these dark little holes. I don't know if you can see it very well or not, because I can't. Let's see if I can get a little closer here. No, that's too far. Anyway, what this is it's called pinching. And it has to do with when you have a corner or you have an edge of one overlaying another plate, and there's a star, maybe a slight star incongruency between those two stars, between the stars right there. So what I had to do is get an image out and take a look at it and try to figure out what star is what, and just basically get rid of that artifacting right there. So there's these kinds of things that you can expect. This is pretty challenging stuff. I gotta tell you this much right now. I spent most of this week working on this thing and trying to get it to where it is right now. And it was not an easy play at all. But basically I just went through and I took out those points right there that were going to be a problem. But I think it came out pretty good. I'm actually pretty impressed with it.
Oh, it's good, spectacular.
Thank you, thank you. So now the way to get here, and I think one of the things that I am good at is the masking part. And when I mask this, I do it in 3 different, what I tried to do, what I found the hardest part with processing was masking, knowing how to do it. And I never found a really good way, so I kind of had to make my own method. But if you notice, you'll see these stars, they're there's these size stars here, and then there's really small stuff, and then there's bigger stuff. So I put them into 3 different bins. Like, for example, Antares. If you look at Antares, we'll take a look at it here. If I get it in there right there, you'll see it's a little undermasked, is what I would say. And you can also see that there's some perimeter stars here that got masked out right there, just because that's the way it is. When you have a bright thing like that, that's what happens. So this star, Antares and Rho Ophiuchi, those 2 stars are on one mask. That's the large mask right there. And then the medium mask is going to be getting stars that are like these. See, and then the small mask gets the smaller stars. So I guess my point here is it has a tendency to give it a 3-dimensional look, you know, because you got these different star sizes in there. And that helps it kind of bring out the image a little bit right there. There's one effect in here, and maybe you can help me on this one, Jerry, because I can't figure this one out. There's a ray effect going on here with Antares. See these rays?
Yes, I did notice those.
And I don't understand it. The only thing I can think of is that some of the nights may have been moist enough where there was dew on the lens. And it's possible that could have created a refractive effect with Antares being in the proximity of the image, you know, being there.
Yeah.
It just did it.
It actually looks like scattered light from Antares that you see when light reflects off the inside of a tube or an eyepiece focuser tube or a camera tube, something like that.
Well, I know that the spacers in this scope do weird things. And I think at this long of a focal length with a 4th element, it causes some weird artifacting to occur. And I think that's probably what it is. And I don't know that there's a whole lot I can do about it.
I don't know. I have an NP127 IS also, and I've used it a bit. I've never seen this. I have seen it in other scopes where it reflects off the, in one scope, one that I made, I took flocking and I put it on the inside of the eyepiece focuser tube, and all that stuff disappeared.
You what now?
I took flocking material that I got from somewhere, I forget the name of the place, and I glued it. It had a self back, you know, sticky back, and I put it on the inside of the 2-inch eyepiece focuser tube.
Oh, on the eyepiece.
And it got rid of that flare, because that looks like a flare.
So you thinking it maybe it's on some of the adapter stuff I've got.
Yeah, I would
maybe
think
put
that,
some like the black felt maybe.
it's kind of a black felt that I used. It was sold by, oh gosh, I forgot the name of the place now. I don't know that they sell it anymore. Anyway, I'll try and figure it out later.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that looks just like a classic flare, and I see that sometimes around stars. Down at the Westmont College, they have a 24-inch. I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but they have a
24-inch at Westmont. And I think an 8-inch refractor.
And we were working on the 24-inch down in the observing room downstairs, and we couldn't find, at first we couldn't find the star we were looking for because it's quite a narrow field of view. But I could very faintly see that kind of flare in part of the focus. So we estimated where the flare lines converged, and we moved over that distance, and there was the star.
Wow.
So it's
I figure it must have been right on the edge, just
okay, but it's usually off something that is very bright, like a silvered or a chromed inside of the eyepiece tube, which is what I had, or a bright nickel-plated screw head or something in the optical train.
So
You know,
Michael,
but
let's ask Michael. Michael, you have any questions about what's going on here, what they're talking about, or?
I have many questions, but I am not informed enough to really articulate them yet. So I'm just soaking it in, enjoying this very much.
You know,
Um,
if you
Come
go
back
back
as
to
much
our,
as you want.
I want to ask a question though. Do you use any kind of light reducing filters for this or not?
this one here, I used a Bader, and I should have told you that, I'm sorry. I
Sorry.
used a Bader moon and sky glow filter, and it's a regular 48 millimeter 2-inch filter. The NP127IS has a special filter adapter, and I could never figure out why the Canon adapter wouldn't accommodate it until I started to think about how this whole system works, and that you've got to put it in the right place in the optical train. That filter has to go first, then the large field projector goes second, and then the Canon adapter goes after that. And it's made in such a way that you can't do it any other way. It has to go a certain way or the highway, which is good. I mean, if you look at the manual for the scope, it has a very nice exploded drawing of all of the adapters that go on that scope. And it shows very clearly that it has to go in a certain order. And that's why that filter can't go on the Canon adapters, because it wouldn't work right.
These filters, most of them are interference filters, and the thickness of the filter is part of that design. And if the light comes in at an angle, then it experiences a different thickness to the glass than if it came straight in. So you want to have the filter at a place where the light is essentially parallel or made a plane wave. It's not strongly converging. One of the best places for filters is in front of everything, where the light is truly parallel, but those are gigantic filters and they cost a fortune. So, but we used to use filters that would take out the street lights that reflect off the sky, like sodium vapor lamps for parking lots and stuff. And then recently they've been changing to LEDs, which are not line emitters. So the sky is getting bright, and that our filtering techniques are not effective against that because it's too broad spectrum. But on cheap refractors, and I have one that's borderline between cheap and good, cheap and excellent, I put a minus violet filter in there to take away the slight color, because it's a 2-element achromat, and it's very good on the color, but on really bright objects you can see a faint purple haze around it. So I use a minus violet filter as a permanent part of my eyepiece focuser to take that out. But those are the only filters I use or have used.
Well, Dick, why did you use a moon filter that would really cut down the light? That would be
Moon and sky glow filter. It's basically just a CLS filter.
Oh.
City light suppression filter is basically, that's the name that they use to call it. So I wanted to use something that, you guys would know where to get it if you wanted it.
But filters that you do use, the color filters, well, do they increase your exposure time that you need because of that?
I don't adjust mine. I did the shots that I did on Macarian's chain that I showed you guys. I shot them at the same exposures. Those were 7 minutes. I shot these at 7 minutes. So I didn't change anything at all. The way I look at this stuff, I mean, you can scrutinize this and try to get the ideal exposure, but the way I kind of look at it is you're just making a pedestal. And so you can go ahead and kind of figure you've got a little wiggle room in there to either underexpose or overexpose and still be able to bring the image out. So I don't try to scrutinize it too much on exposure, but you should be within the realm there of, let's say 1 or 2 minutes of the exposure time, I think would be a good idea to be somewhat close, I guess is what I would say.
Gentlemen,
I was going to show them a shot of the one that I showed you guys the last time, just to kind of show you what you can do. This is a 24 millimeter lens. You put it right on your camera. And this was shot with it's a Rinconen 24 millimeter f1.2 lens at f4. I stopped it down a couple stops, And now this one has been processed in such a way to bring out some of the large structure like Arcturus up here. And this is that Rho Ophiuchi area that we were talking about. You can see Sagittarius. This is the pincers and its head of the Scorpion right there. And the Milky Way starting off in this direction here. This blue area right here is sky glow because this is south and this is north on top right here. But you can see the constellations. You got, you know, there's Corona Borealis. You can see Bootes over here. There's Hercules over here. You can see M13. You can see some objects. So, you know, I guess where I was kind of just going at this thing is put your money into them. I mean, I'm just going to throw this out. People can poke holes in it or anything. I'd say put your money in the mount. And then that way you can put a camera lens like that on there right now and start shooting and you know, then work yourself up to getting another scope later on. And there's all kinds of scopes. You know, you can treat it, look at focal length. Focal length is your best point because if you're going to be shooting stars, okay, you've got a format of your film is say 35 millimeter, or let's say if it's an AP size sensor, it'd be less, say 25 millimeters, somewhere in that range right there. And then that's fixed. So the only thing that you can change is the focal length of the instrument that you're using. That would be your telescope. Okay. So for more magnification, you need longer focal length. The magnification would be the ratio of that focal length to the sensor diagonal, roughly speaking. So that's your magnification. So I would recommend starting out at as wide an angle as you can, because it's going to be more forgiving. You're going to be guiding, and if you start out with something that's more difficult, that has a longer focal length, then all of those factors are going to enter into this whole thing. You know, it's going to be difficult for you just to get your arms around guiding, and then there's focusing, and there's aspects in here that are going to take you time to learn. So it might behoove you to do something like that. I'm just going to say that, just throw it out there, and just kind of, you know, and then get the mount first, and then start playing around with some 24 millimeter stuff or whatever size lens you got. You know, you can go up to 100 millimeters. I'd recommend not using a zoom lens, and the reason why, it's very difficult to get the zoom lens to the same magnification every time, even if you go up against the stops. It just doesn't work out very well. And the other thing about a zoom lens is it's a compromise between several different types of lenses. So it never really is that good.
But here's another thought before, just kind of a devil's thought here is, just look at the NASA Hubble website. You don't need to buy a telescope at all, a mount. Just take in what NASA's given us. You'll never match them. You'll never be good enough. Why get into this astrophotography business? What do people say on that?
Are you asking me?
Anybody?
Because we're foolish and stupid and we don't know any better?
Because we did it. Because we did it.
Doesn't that just sum it up right there? I mean,
There's one company that makes a telescope, and the name of the telescope is Obsession. And
there you go. That's pretty much it right there.
Yeah.
Well, I used to know John Dobson, and so I asked him, do you do any astrophotography? And he said, astrophotography is an illness that someday they'll find a cure for.
Yeah. Don't count on it.
Yeah.
Start out with, I would start out with something like a 400 millimeter on your mount, and because like Dick was saying, you know, going through the smaller objects is a lot harder to do the long focal length. Your errors are magnified just that much more, and the seam will affect it, and there's all these variables that add up, and weight. You know, long focal length telescopes require mounts that are that much more accurate and hard to use. So if you go to a shorter focal length and go for the larger objects, you'll be able to build up your experience, and nail down, this is how you this is how you align your mount. This is how you set up your auto guiding. And there's a ton of objects that to take that are relatively large, and you can work on those and then go to the galaxies and the star clusters, and when you really got it nailed down, because
I appreciate that.
that's just my 2 cents. Also, another thing too is that if you really want to go out and image some of these faint stuff, you'll most likely wind up going someplace, the dark side, for the really faint stuff, and it's harder to set up for a long focal length.
Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen. It was very informative, and I hope that I can keep in touch with you,
Oh,
gentlemen.
yeah, we're here.
And my point person is actually Chuck. But I guess now I have all you gentlemen as well. I have your emails, don't I? I'm assuming.
I think so, but Chuck frequently shows up on this forum too, so.
But I would like to be part of this again, if I may.
Yeah.
And,
I'll
It
put
was
your
great.
name on the list of people that I send out the link to, but you should be able to use the same link next week. That email I sent you
yes,
should have the same links for our Monday morning program and our Tuesday evening program. Those links should keep on working.
if you find something, by the way, in between now and then that you think I should look at that is worth my looking at, do send it to me by email.
Okay.
And if there's anything that you think I should look at within your purview, let me know as well.
Take a look at our past telescope workshops too that are on YouTube, and maybe if you listen, you might absorb something from our past discussions and see what's been going on. So if you have the time.
Very kind of you, gentlemen. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Nice to
Very
meet you,
nice.
Michael.
Thanks so much again. Be well, sir.
Good night.
Well, I got two things to share with you over the week. One is a picture, and the other one is a solution to doing things semi-remotely. Let me, if I can share the first thing is, okay, this is a relatively short exposure. This is M5 that I did. That's with the C11 full focal length. I wanted to try this instead of the 6.3, and so it was very windy, and as you can see, the stars are kind of bloated with the
They are,
sea.
but that's excellent resolution. You've resolved the core, almost the core of the
Yeah.
cluster.
Yeah,
Is it smoky in your area? Is that why the stars are all red?
I think it has to do with my camera.
Oh,
more
okay.
than anything. And
Just the white
Um,
balance then.
well, this also was shot night before last with a full moon, and so
Oh,
it was really difficult. I did M4, and then I did 5053, which was a smaller cluster, and I was having the deep sky stacker wasn't seeing the stars. There wasn't enough contrast, and you figure with 2 minutes, I mean, I got plenty of stars here. But another thing that I got, and this is for the synagogue that I belong to. Do you see this?
well, I see a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay, hold a second here. Stop share. Let me just do a share here. We're setting up a video system, and so
Oh yeah.
one of the things was finding a camera for Zoom that didn't go over the Wi-Fi, because it seemed like most of the cameras for Wi-Fi really were geared towards intruder alerts than anything. And so we set this up today, as you can see, 262 feet. Basically, you go over Cat 5 or 6, and so on this other one here, and this was a less expensive one. It worked really well. It's like having a USB hub. So for like Mike, one of the things that we didn't tell him was one of the biggest hassles is the number of cables hanging from your telescope causing the issues. And so this here worked really well with 2 webcams. We went it's about, well, we used 150 feet. But one of the funny things, or not so funny, was that somebody, a guy named Martin, who was skinny as a rail, and he's complaining he gained 5 pounds, had to crawl underneath this 100-year-old synagogue where they installed things like air conditioning ducts and stuff like that, and he could barely get himself through and snaking things. And I had given him, you know, one of these GMRS, 1 second here, let me just do a stop share. One of these, okay? And so I go, click, 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 see, you know, testing 1, 2, 3. I had the other one next to me, you know, you take it. So I'm trying to call him underneath there, and the guy did not know how to use one of these walkie-talkies. So the next time, and I can hardly hear him. My wife says, I can hear him. Okay, where are you? I'm over here. Everything's all jammed up. And, you know, I couldn't hear it, and I'm trying to talk to him over this. And well, eventually we did. But anyways, going back to this here, that I've seen these, and for the most part, they work pretty well. And so for a lot of us who just want to try and do remotely, this is a thing where you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi interface.
Let me show something to you too, real briefly, then we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Where is it? Can you see this?
Not yet.
Okay. Share screen.
Which window is it?
There we go. There you go.
Is this, can you see this?
Yep.
Ioptron Ranger.
Icon Ranger, yeah.
Yeah, this is a similar device. I've been using this for about 10 years. It's a Cat 5 Ethernet extender for UCSB. And I have one of these right next to my laptop, and then the other one out next to the telescope, about, well, up to hundreds of feet away. And I've been using it for quite a while. It's a little more expensive than the one that Mike showed, but it's worked wonderfully. So
that's professional grade. That would be IT people.
this is the one that Astrophysics sold when I bought my mount from them years ago. I don't think they sell it anymore.
Those are so it's a wireless thing, or what?
No, there's 2 of these units. See, there's one on top of the other.
Oh, and then you just use an Ethernet cable between these.
Yeah, the Ethernet cable between the 2, and this one's got 4 USB ports on the, and this is the one near the telescope. So these cables run up the telescope. Sure. This one sits next to the computer, and it has one USB 2 port on the back with an Ethernet port.
Cool.
So now the one thing that you have to worry about is that some laptops will work with these and other ones will not for whatever reason.
I run into that with every piece of equipment. It works with some things, it doesn't work with other things.
It's USB, you know, what can I say?
So the thing I have to watch out for is when I get tired, I stumble over the cable, because sometimes it coils up, and then sometimes the dog stumbles over the cable. So other than that, it's fine.
There is one other way of doing it, but it's not using the software you want, and that's just to use the Raspberry Pi, and just connect that up with the in INDI and all that. You know, it's a full suite. I did have it working, but some of the planetarium software didn't look as nice as some of the other ones that I've used. You know, the stars weren't as, it didn't give it as good an image, let's just say. So, but,
Okay.
but this one, you know, allows you to use the software on your laptop.
Yeah, I guess the wave of the trend I see right now is people putting a laptop or a computer without a screen and without a keyboard. They put it on the telescope.
Yeah, or
And
Raspberry
they-
Pi.
Then they come over with the Wi-Fi or something to pick it up on your other screen in the house or something. So
Remote control, I think, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
no.
like mine better. Mine's
Yeah.
fast. I guess the other's fast too. So
Yeah, it's really a hassle with the cables hanging up and all that.
yeah,
The Misu doesn't have, the version that I have doesn't have cable routing that goes through the axis and all that. The new ones do, and that really allows you to not have to worry about things getting hung up.
Yeah.
Now, my friend has one of the software disk mounts, and supposedly it has cable routing in there, but he gave up on that because the power cables to and then the control cables to it uses up considerable amount of the diameter inside. So he has.
yeah, my
he
mount
has
has that same feature, but I don't use it. I've sort of learned to handle cables before the internal stuff got popular. And I would say that most of the time when I use astronomy equipment, my biggest problem is always cable management in the dark and at the site.
Yeah, usually what I do is I route it from the deck axis. I had a picture that I probably can't find that, you know, that kind of goes over the deck axis onto the deck shaft with a counterweight. And then from there you get another loop that loops to the main part of the mount. So you got one loop that does this and the other loop that does this. You know, there are two loops, and right where the deck and the RA axis meet is where you tie that there, and so it keeps it away from hanging up.
So Mike, you sent us those double star pictures that the guy took. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, iPhone, you know, it's just unguided. I mean, and the color's good, and yeah, he actually had some, you know, look at that. Isn't that incredible? Now, I'm not sure if that's quality enough to do any astrometry, but you know, he's.
Oh yeah,
he's
you
doing,
can measure the centroid of those and get the separation.
Yeah.
So which one, you didn't identify which one was which though?
Yeah, up here.
Zeta Hercules.
That's right. It's
Zeta
on
Hercules.
yeah. So it's
Oh, I
on
see
the
it up there. Yeah,
The title, yeah.
okay. Yeah,
so yeah, it's some other ones that were even more tighter. So, you know, the problem I think is exposure. They're overexposed for, you know, for the most accurate because there's a little bit of bleeding. But then again, this is on a 12-inch. It's just a Dobsonian from China.
oh, those are good images.
Yeah, you know, static and in the Rio Vista wind. So it's doing pretty good.
Now, when you sent those out first, I didn't see the labels on for the stars. And so you reminded me of a Saturday Night Live weekend update sportscast where they said, and now a few scores from around the country, and they go 6 to 12,
Yeah.
17 to 25. They just listed all of the numbers.
Well, my wife did something like that today. One of our favorite places we used to like to have breakfast in San Francisco, Cliff House, closed. And so she sent out a thing that it was like about a 2-year thing since we were there, and one of these remembrance things. And she wanted to send it out without Google metadata, so she went and put it in a photo editor, and took a bit of the picture and then put it out there and says, okay, everybody guess where this is at, so nobody could cheat. A lot of your pictures have all this metadata stuff on there, so.
Eventually you could figure it out.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm doing at my observatory is I'm coming down with poor pointing again for whatever reason. So what I wound up doing was realigning the telescope with the North Pole star, and I figure I've got about 30 arc seconds of error in either axis. So I got to go and do a whole new model just because of that, for better pointing. But I might have knocked the telescope around a little bit, and that's probably what has done me in. So I'm going to have to spend a night when it isn't too windy. And again, it's very windy. It's clear, but it's, trying to do accurate stuff in 25-mile-an-hour winds is not fun.
No.
No. So,
So you got wind at night, huh?
oh yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Is that typical or something, or is it just this?
Oh yeah. This is, hey, when you've got like 400 or 500 wind turbines, yeah, I can see one or two in the distance with the red lights flashing. Yeah, there's a lot of wind here. So, but believe it or not, this is one of the few places in the whole Sacramento, region, Napa, and all around there, that it's the darkest. Rio Vista is, and off to the side a little bit, there's a nature preserve where it's like closer to Bortle 3 than the Bortle 5. So I could, here, let me show you. This is one of my favorite websites. Let me just go over here. Let me just bring it up here. Oops. Here, hold a second. Atmospheric, and let me just do a share. Okay, atmospheric, you see it?
Yeah.
It's a free site, and so I just go click on here, and now what I have to do here is get rid of everybody, including me, so I can get to all the icons. And okay, so terrain, whoops. Okay, Fairfield, there's 12, and there's with a red circle, that's where I'm at. Okay.
So that's about a 4, looks like. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in the middle of the forest.
Yeah.
So, so this is the darkest place.
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, so you can
Pretty much
see,
at ground zero, except for that
Yeah.
center. region.
yeah, right, yeah. I mean, where else would I have to go to? Well,
Mhm.
you know, this is the Sierras. Okay, there's Yosemite.
Mhm.
So that's, you know, that's what I, you know, in a way I'm lucky, in a way I'm not lucky, because this is the San Joaquin Valley and it's got, you know, the stuff in the air from all the agriculture and stuff
Yep,
like that.
that's a problem with the Central Valley.
Yeah. So when it's windy, hold a second here. And then, okay, C is a little bit below average. Let's see here. I'm trying to find the transparency. Okay, there we go. So about average. So it's
Mhm.
because it's blowing a lot. It's okay. So let's go back to dark here and see what you guys have to contend with. One second, trying to get dark here. Come on. I'll get into this. Here's Santa Barbara. And it's not gonna. Okay, there we go. There's Santa Barbara.
Way up at the left.
Yeah, right there. Okay. So
Can
you
you put
guys
it
aren't
on
too bad.
Goleta?
What?
Can you put it on Goleta?
Yeah.
Right
I
over the
can.
shield, it says 101 on the left. And a little more out back. No, not that one. Back there, right there. Right there. Look there.
Okay.
That's
dark.
about where my place is. Not
Okay,
too bad.
so you're talking about um, between 5 and 4.
Yeah.
Okay, and you go to, okay, so here is the
Kachuma.
lake. So that's the bottom end of 4.
Yeah.
But if you were to go to the Carrizo Plain, now you're in Bartle 3.
Mhm.
But then you're dealing with junk in the air and riffraff on the ground.
It looks
with
like
the-
Figueroa might be on the edge of the dark there.
Where's Figueroa?
Right down towards Santa Barbara, just in the lower edge of the dark blue.
Okay, hold a second. Santa Barbara, right there.
Go up just a little bit more, yeah. Somewhere in that range.
Here's Los Olivos.
Yeah, so it's touch the dark part a little bit higher and then go back to yeah, bring the red circle to right into that area. See where Figueroa is. There's the camps. They're showing campgrounds. You got to go back down a little bit. They're showing campgrounds in that area. So
Okay,
Figueroa almost gets pretty dark there.
okay. Let's see here. Oops. Sorry about that. It just went wonky on me here.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So that's Portal 3 right there. So
Wow.
going back to terrain. So you're in the mountain plains over here. Well, actually, you're not even in the Carrizo Plain there, are you?
No.
In the Carrizo Plain, you're actually right. So
Yeah. So does this thing predict the future days, astrophysics?
yeah. So I could go to cloud cover and zoom out. And then click on here, and it's going to tell us.
Uh,
Hmm. Looks like a useful website.
Hmm,
You think?
Astrospheric.
wow, goes out several days.
Yeah.
Yeah. The clear dark sky, we have on the website, it goes out maybe 3 days.
Well, the thing with clear, a lot of these sites, they say it's clear, but then you look up and it's got the high altitude clouds that are spoiling it. So
Yeah.
zoom out here. Okay, so. And definitely, I was seeing those clouds.
Hmm.
So yeah. So another thing too is if you cloud cover transparency does the same thing too. So you can tell you what the transparency is.
I think clear dark sky shows the scene.
Well, yeah. Well, this does too. I have to figure out which one it is. Oh, this also shows you the jet streams.
Mhm.
So, which is handy from the standpoint of seeing.
Yeah. Right over Santa Barbara.
So,
Yeah, that's handy to see.
yeah. Okay, so this is worth sharing. Okay, I wonder what it does with, it doesn't do anything. So if you really want truly dark skies, Tonopah around there.
Yeah,
Well, actually, Tonopah isn't that dark anymore.
Great Basin. Great Basin.
Area
There's a great-
Area 51.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's close to Area 51. but-
Yeah, it is. That's why it was. Okay, but even you go down here, San Fernando, where is right here? Okay, so this is the darkest sites for you that you
Out
can
there in the
reasonably go to.
Mojave,
Mojave.
Mojave.
Yeah, right. And so,
Okay, well, I'm fading out. I'm gonna.
Yeah, me too. I gotta get going.
okay.
Thank you
Thanks,
guys
Bruce.
so much.
Yes,
you.
right. Not the
All right.
Okay,
day
so
every night.
you can experiment with this and kind of wish I wish I had some RV area in this place. Okay, take care. Bye.
All right, Mike. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Special thanks to Tom, who has stayed up till midnight.
What?
Okay,
Santa Barbara time 9. All right, see you guys.
Okay, bye.
see ya. Bye.
Bye.